Since you guys liked part 1, I'm doing a part 2 of the 3 biggest downfalls ever in Roblox. Let's get right into it.
So, Roblox Bedwars used to be one of the biggest games on the platform, exploding in 2021 because it gave players a free alternative to Minecraft Bedwars with fast-paced, skill-based matches that anyone could jump into, and the hype was fueled even more by YouTubers and streamers covering it non-stop. But over time, the game slowly lost its magic. The biggest issue was the introduction of kits, which started off fun but quickly became unbalanced and pay-to-win, meaning players who didn't spend Robux were at a major disadvantage, and instead of refining the simple, competitive gameplay that made the game special, the developers piled on flashy updates, limited-time items, and gimmicky game modes that made matches feel inconsistent and frustrating, especially since balance was often broken with certain kits dominating while others were useless. On top of that, the competitive side of the game never really took off because Ranked was filled with hackers and poor moderation, and once content creators began moving on to other games, their audiences followed, leaving Bedwars without the strong community backbone it once had. Eventually, players burned out on the repetitive formula and started exploring other PvP games on Roblox. And what was once a cultural phenomenon dropped to just another title in the mix, with people now remembering it less as a long-term classic and more as a game that fell victim to over-monetization, bad balance, and a loss of identity.
Now on to number 2. Pet Simulator X started out as one of the most popular Roblox games ever, pulling in massive player counts because the concept was simple and addicting: collect pets, grind for coins, unlock new worlds, and show off your rare finds. And the constant updates kept people coming back week after week. But over time, the game's focus shifted away from fun progression and toward heavy monetization. Pay-to-win mechanics, game passes, and exclusive pets that cost Robux created a huge gap between casual players and whales, and many people felt like they couldn't keep up unless they spent real money, which sucked out the original charm of grinding. Updates also became more repetitive and less exciting, with new worlds or new eggs that felt like the same thing reskinned, and that caused a lot of burnout in the community. Trading and duping problems added even more frustration since the in-game economy kept breaking, making pets feel worthless or impossible to obtain fairly. Meanwhile, content creators who helped fuel the hype at its peak eventually moved on because the game stopped being fun to cover, and once they left, the audiences that kept the player base alive followed. All of this combined with the natural cycle of players getting bored meant that Pet Simulator X went from being the biggest thing on Roblox to a game remembered for its pay-to-win grind and endless cash grab updates rather than the fun, simple collecting experience it started out as. Before we get to number 1, here are some honorable mentions. Now, last but not least, Bladeball. Bladeball blew up on Roblox because it was fresh, simple, and insanely fun. A dodgeball-style game where you deflect a speeding ball with your sword and try to outlast everyone else, and its unique mix of fast reactions, flashy visuals, and competitive tension made it stand out from other Roblox titles. But as the months went by, the game slowly lost steam. The main issue was the developers leaning too hard into monetization and constant ability releases that made the game feel more pay-to-win than skill-based. Since players who bought the strongest abilities or upgrades had a huge advantage, and that killed some of the original anyone-can-win excitement. Updates also started to feel repetitive, mostly recycling the same formula with new maps or cosmetics, instead of meaningful gameplay improvements, which led to burnout, and balance problems only made things worse when certain abilities completely dominated lobbies. Hackers and exploits further frustrated competitive players, and since the game never really developed a true ranked or tournament system to keep the hardcore crowd invested, a lot of them just quit. Meanwhile, content creators who drove the hype at launch also began leaving once the game stopped pulling views, and as they moved on, so did their audiences, leaving the player base smaller and less active. At the end of the day, Bladeball is remembered for its explosive rise and short-lived hype. But it fell off because it didn't keep the core gameplay fresh, leaned too hard on monetization, and failed to build a lasting competitive scene that could have carried it long-term. Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing and following, and bye. Also go watch part 1 if you haven't seen it. It's a banger.